Budget-Free Wealth. How to Save Without Sacrificing Fun, written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Let's be honest, most personal finance books feel like homework. They come with spreadsheets, formulas, and a long list of things you're doing wrong. They tell you to cut back, scale down, and wait for joy until some magical future where everything is perfectly optimized. Fun is optional. Guilt is baked in. And if you don't follow the plan, it's your fault. This book isn't that. Budget-Free Wealth was written for people who want more from their money, but don't want to live like a monk to get it. It's for people who want to build savings, reduce stress, and grow real wealth without giving up the parts of life that make it worth living. No more choosing between abundance and enjoyment. We're doing both. You won't find rigid budgets here. What you will find is a new way of thinking about money, one that starts with awareness, builds with alignment, and ends in freedom. You'll learn how to track your spending without spreadsheets, how to save without sacrificing your social life, how to spend with intention, not guilt, and how to build wealth on autopilot, even if you've struggled with money for years. This isn't about perfection. It's about clarity, about crafting a lifestyle that matches your values, about finally feeling in control without feeling deprived. We'll talk about coffee, takeout, concerts, mistakes, money guilt, and how to ditch the outdated advice that says you have to earn more or spend less to win. The truth? You just need a system that works with your life, because wealth isn't about what you give up, it's about what you get to keep. Your joy, your time, your peace, and most importantly, your freedom. So if you're ready to stop shaming yourself and start shaping your future, let's begin. Chapter 1. The latte is not the enemy. Let's start with a lie you've probably heard 100 times. If you just stopped buying that daily latte, you'd be rich by now. That $5 coffee has become the villain in every budgeting blog, financial course, and guilt-inducing Instagram post. But here's the truth they never tell you: your latte isn't the problem. The problem is the shame around it. We've been conditioned to believe that small pleasures are dangerous, that joy is expensive, that fun is irresponsible. So we start cutting the coffee, cutting the streaming service, cutting the dinners out, and what we're really slicing away at is our energy, our motivation, our ability to enjoy the life we're working so hard to build. You and I both know that $5 a day won't make or break your financial future. You could skip every latte for a year and end up with what? $1,825? Not nothing. But also not life-changing. Now imagine the same year without those little moments of joy, the quiet morning ritual, the chat with the barista, the warmth of something that feels like a reward. That's what you're giving up. For what? A number in a savings account you barely look at? This is where most money advice goes off the rails. It focuses on restriction instead of reflection. It starts with cutting instead of noticing. But building wealth isn't about sacrifice, it's about alignment. The goal isn't to spend less, it's to spend better. What if you stopped judging your purchases and started evaluating them? Not with guilt. With curiosity. Let's say you buy lunch out every day at work. That's $15 a pop. Over the course of a week, $75. Over a month, $300. That's real money. But before you slash it, ask, do I actually enjoy this? Does it make my day easier? Do I look forward to it? Or is it just autopilot spending? Something you do without thinking. If it lights you up, keep it. If it doesn't, cut it. No guilt. No drama. Just awareness. This one shift, spending based on joy per dollar, will do more for your financial future than any budgeting spreadsheet ever will. Because now, you're not randomly cutting, you're making space for what matters. You're choosing what to fund. Here's where it gets fun. Instead of obsessing over what to stop spending on, let's talk about what to start automating. The key isn't discipline, it's design. The moment money hits your account, a small portion gets rerouted, automatically, to a savings or investment account. You don't see it, so you don't miss it, and because you're not spending time managing a strict budget, you're free to live. Think about it, you get to enjoy your latte, your dinners, your Spotify premium, and still grow wealth in the background. That's not irresponsible. That's smart. That's how you win. This book isn't going to ask you to track every dime. It won't guilt you into canceling everything you love. What it will do is help you see your money clearly, help you align it with what you actually care about, and help you build wealth without burning out. So no, the latte isn't your enemy. The real enemy is the belief that fun and finance can't coexist, that joy must be postponed until some distant someday. But you deserve to enjoy your life now. You deserve to feel in control without feeling deprived. And you absolutely deserve a money system that works with your lifestyle, not against it. This journey doesn't start with cutting, it starts with clarity. And once you have that, wealth doesn't feel like restriction. It feels like freedom. Chapter 2. Spend on what sparks you, cut the rest ruthlessly. Imagine if your spending didn't feel random. Imagine if every dollar you spent made you feel more like yourself, not less. That's the power of aligning money with meaning. It's not about cutting expenses across the board. It's about cutting the wrong ones, the ones that drain you, the ones that don't align with who you are or who you're becoming. Because here's the truth most people never hear. Not all spending is created equal. Let's say you love going to concerts. You feel most alive in a crowd, singing with strangers, the bass shaking your bones. Tickets might cost you $75. Some budgeting advice would tell you to skip it, stay home, and save that money. But you'd be saving money at the cost of your energy, your joy, your identity. That's not winning, that's withering. Now imagine the opposite. You spend $300 a month on takeout, not because you love it, but because you're exhausted and it's easy. You don't look forward to it. You don't remember what you ate 2 days later. That's autopilot spending, money going out without meaning coming in. That's what we want to cut. Not out of guilt, but out of clarity. This is the shift. Instead of budgeting by category, we start budgeting by values. We stop asking, is this too expensive? And start asking, is this important to me? It's not about the price tag, it's about the return on joy. Because when you spend in alignment with your values, every dollar becomes more powerful, more personal, and weirdly, more satisfying. Here's how to start. Make a short list, 3 to 5 things that genuinely light you up. Not what you think should matter. What actually matters. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's books. Maybe it's dinner with friends, solo spa days, new experiences, fitness classes, cozy candles, or good wine. Whatever it is, name it. Own it. These are your spending values. Now look at your recent spending. Does it reflect those values? Or are your dollars leaking into things that don't really move you? You don't need to judge yourself. Just notice. And from that awareness, make one change, one redirect. Maybe you cook dinner twice this week instead of ordering in, and you use that money to buy tickets to a show, or to fund your weekend hike. Or to finally invest in that thing you've been saying you'll get someday. This isn't about minimalism or frugality. It's about alignment. And the cool part? You'll likely spend less overall without even trying, because you're not numbing or avoiding or impulse buying. You're spending with purpose. You're editing out the noise so your money can actually sing. And yes, some things will get cut. That's okay. That's the point. But it won't feel like sacrifice, it'll feel like strategy. Because you're not cutting randomly. You're making space for what matters most. Here's a rule we live by. If it doesn't light you up, cut it ruthlessly. If it does, fund it fully. That's how you create a spending plan that feels like freedom, not punishment. That's how you build wealth without giving up the parts of life that make it rich in the first place. So next time you reach for your wallet, pause. Ask yourself, is this a spark or a shrug? Does this align with what I truly value, or is it just noise? With every choice, you're shaping your life. Let's make sure it's one you actually want to live in. You don't need a spreadsheet to be good with money. You just need a little honesty, a little awareness, and a willingness to cut what's draining you. Because when you spend in alignment with your joy, saving becomes effortless. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally spending like it matters. Chapter 3. Wealth Autopilot. Most people think saving money takes discipline, but here's the truth, it takes design. If you're relying on willpower to build wealth, you've already lost the game. Because let's be honest. Life is busy, things come up. We get tired, we forget. The pizza smells good. The sale is ending. The friend texts, brunch, and suddenly that money you meant to save? Gone. Not because you're weak. Because you're human. That's why the smartest way to save money is to never give yourself the chance to spend it in the first place. Enter the system I call Wealth Autopilot. The idea is simple. Instead of budgeting manually or tracking every transaction, you set up your money to move where it needs to go automatically, behind the scenes, like a financial assistant who never sleeps. The moment you get paid, your money splits itself up. Some goes to savings, some to bills, some to investing, some to guilt-free spending, and you don't have to think about it. It just happens. Here's how it looks in real life. You get paid on Friday. That same day, an automatic transfer moves 10% of your check into a high-yield savings account. Another 10% gets invested into a retirement or brokerage account. Your rent or mortgage payment is scheduled for the next business day. Maybe you have a separate account just for fun money, movies, concerts, clothes, whatever makes life feel alive. The rest stays in checking for everyday use. You don't decide each month if you're going to save. You've already decided once, and your system carries it out for you. This is the power of automation. It takes your best intentions and turns them into repeatable results. And it frees up your brain to focus on things that actually matter: your goals, your relationships, your energy. No more mental math. No more end-of-month guilt. No more wondering where the money went. It's already taken care of. Most people think being good with money means checking your budget every day and logging every purchase. But the opposite is true. The more successful people become with money, the less they think about it. Not because they don't care, but because they've built a system that does the caring for them. Here's the trick: start small. Don't overthink it. Even transferring $25 a week into savings builds momentum. You can always increase it later. The point is consistency. The magic is in the automation. And once it's in place, you'll be shocked how quickly the numbers grow, without you lifting a finger. Another bonus: automating removes emotion. You're no longer choosing between saving and spending in the heat of the moment. You've already made the wise decision, and the system honors it. This creates a sense of trust, not just in the process, but in yourself. Suddenly you're not someone who tries to save, you're someone who does save. Effortlessly, consistently, automatically. You'll notice something else too. Once your basics are handled, savings, bills, fun money, you actually feel more free to spend. No guilt, no stress. Because you know the important stuff is covered. You're not guessing anymore. You're flowing. So if you've ever struggled to save, stop trying harder. Start setting up your autopilot. Remove yourself from the equation. Design your money to behave the way you want it to, without needing you to be perfect. This isn't about being frugal or rigid, it's about being smart. And once your wealth is growing on autopilot, you can get back to living your life, latte in hand, joy in full swing, knowing your future self is being taken care of in the background. Chapter 4. Why budgeting doesn't work and what actually does. If traditional budgeting worked, everyone would be rich, but look around. Most people aren't saving. Most people feel stressed about money. Most people have tried budgeting and failed, or burned out trying, so maybe it's not you, maybe it's the method. Let's talk about what budgeting really is. It's a plan, made in advance, that assigns every dollar a job. That sounds responsible, even noble. But in practice, it often feels rigid, unrealistic, and exhausting. You set spending limits in a spreadsheet: $300 for groceries, $50 for entertainment, $0 for fun, and then life happens. Your friend invites you out. You forget your lunch, your dog eats your headphones. Suddenly, your perfect plan is in flames, and you're either frustrated or feeling like a failure. Again. Budgeting assumes you know exactly how the month will go. But money, like life, doesn't follow perfect patterns. It ebbs and flows. That's why so many budgets fail. They're built for control, not flexibility. They treat money like math. But money is also emotion. It's tied to stress, freedom, guilt, joy, identity. And when we try to apply rigid systems to something as emotional as spending, we rebel. We overspend, then overcorrect. It's a cycle of shame. So what works better? Awareness. Not in the write down every transaction way, I'm in the know what actually matters to you way. In the watch your behavior without judging it way. Instead of trying to control every penny, You start by observing where your money naturally goes. You become aware of patterns. You ask better questions. Does this expense make me happy? Is this aligned with my values? Did I even notice this subscription was still active? From that place of awareness, you don't need a budget. You need priorities. You need systems that reflect your reality, not punish you for being human. That might mean spending more on one category one month, and less the next. That might mean cooking more in February, because you're saving for a trip in June. It's fluid. It's personal. It evolves. The truth is, people don't overspend because they're careless. They overspend because they're disconnected. And disconnected from what they value. They are disconnected from what they're actually buying. A budget tells you don't spend, but alignment asks, why are you spending? One creates guilt. The other creates clarity. And that clarity leads to control, not the kind where you force every dollar to obey, but the kind where your money finally makes sense. Where it feels like a reflection of your life, not a cage. You start to see that some spending is worth every penny, and some spending isn't worth a dime, and you adjust slowly, without shame. This is the shift. Stop trying to budget your money like a robot. Start managing your money like a real person, with real needs, real emotions, and real priorities. Replace the old method with a new mindset. One that says, I trust myself to make decisions that feel good, do good, and build something lasting. That's why this book doesn't come with downloadable budget templates. It comes with tools for reflection, challenges for observation, prompts to help you reconnect with your spending, because once you see clearly, you'll act differently, not because a spreadsheet tells you to, but because you want to. You don't need a budget. You need a system that honors your humanity. You need automation that supports your goals. You need awareness that wakes you up, not wears you down. That's what actually works. That's what builds real, lasting wealth. Chapter 5. The 7-Day Money Awareness Challenge. Let's be real, most people don't know where their money actually goes. They might have a general sense, rent, food, gas, but the details? The habits? The patterns? All blurry at best. That's not a character flaw. It's a result of a system that teaches us to either obsess over money or ignore it entirely. But awareness sits in the middle. It's gentle. It's honest. And it's where all real financial change begins. That's why we're not starting with spreadsheets, budgets, or complicated systems. We're starting with a flashlight. Not to criticize, just to see. And that's what the 7-Day Money Awareness Challenge is all about, seeing your money clearly, without guilt or shame. Here's how it works. For the next 7 days, track every dollar you spend. Not forever. Just for a week. You don't need a fancy app. Use the Notes app on your phone, a journal, or even a piece of scrap paper. Every time you spend money, on anything, write it down, the amount, what it was, and a quick note on how it made you feel. That's it. No judging, no correcting. Just noticing. Why this works is simple. We can't change what we can't see. Most overspending doesn't happen because we're reckless. It happens because we're unaware. We swipe, tap, click, done. Money moves, and we barely register it. But when you start observing your behavior, you begin to wake up. You see the patterns, the impulse buys, the habits that don't even feel like you anymore. You might realize you're spending $200 a month on delivery, but not even enjoying the meals. You might see 5 streaming services you forgot you subscribed to. You might notice that you always shop online after a stressful workday. That awareness is gold. Because once you see it, you can start to shift it. This challenge isn't about restriction. It's about curiosity. You're not tracking your spending to tighten your belt. You're tracking it to tune into your life. You're noticing where your money flows, and asking gently if that flow is taking you where you want to go. Let's be honest, some of what you'll find might surprise you. That's okay, let it. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Money, like time, is a resource. You don't get it back once it's spent. So wouldn't it be powerful to actually know how you're using it? By the end of the week, you'll have a mini financial diary, and a snapshot of your real behavior. Not the ideal version, the true one. That's powerful, because from there you can start making small, intentional shifts. Maybe you swap one takeout night for a home-cooked dinner. Maybe you cancel one forgotten subscription. Maybe you double down on spending that actually fuels you. And remember, this is temporary. 7 days, not forever. But what you'll gain in that short window is priceless: a renewed connection to your money, a clear-eyed view of what's working and what's not, and the ability to make choices that feel aligned, not forced. Most people skip this step. They jump straight to cutting costs or setting goals. But if you haven't built awareness first, those strategies don't stick. You fall back into old patterns, not because you're weak, but because you're blind. So take the challenge. No pressure, no guilt. Just you, your money, and a little curiosity. 7 days, one small action, and a massive mindset shift. You can't change the way you spend until you understand it. And you can't understand it until you observe it. So start now. Light on, judgment off. Let's see what your money has been trying to tell you. Chapter 6. Aligning money with meaning. If I looked at your last month of spending, I could tell you what matters to you, not what you say matters, what actually does. Because money is a mirror. It reflects your values, your priorities, your fears, and your desires. The problem is, most of us have never stopped to ask if what we're spending on lines up with what we really care about. We just spend. Out of habit. Out of convenience, out of stress. Out of boredom. Then we wonder why it doesn't feel good. This chapter is about closing that gap, the one between your money and your meaning, because when those two things align, everything changes. Spending becomes intentional. Saving becomes natural. And you start feeling a sense of peace with your finances, not because you have it all figured out, but because it finally feels like you. Start here. Ask yourself what actually matters to you. Not to your parents, your friends, or your favorite influencer. To you. What makes you feel most alive? What experiences give you energy? What values do you want your life to reflect? Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's connection. Maybe it's freedom, adventure, generosity, or growth. Name them. Write them down. These aren't abstract ideas, they're the compass for your financial decisions. Now, take a look at your recent spending. No shame. No judgment. Just honesty. Does your money reflect those values? Or are you funding someone else's version of a good life? Are you spending $400 a month on things you don't really enjoy, while telling yourself you can't afford the one thing that actually matters to you? You might find you're spending out of alignment. That's okay, most people are. The good news is, you don't need to overhaul your life to fix it, you just need to make 1 or 2 small shifts. Maybe you cancel a recurring expense that feels pointless and use that money to join a community that lights you up. Maybe you stop chasing deals on things you don't love and start paying full price for things that do. Maybe you start saving for something that feels big, not because it's flashy, but because it's yours. Money alignment isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Every time you spend, you're casting a vote for the kind of life you want to live. Are you voting for joy? For meaning? For freedom? Or are you voting for obligation, distraction, or default? You might feel resistance. That's normal. We're often scared to change how we use money because we think it'll mean giving something up. But what you're really doing is trading up, less of what drains you for more of what fills you. Less noise, more depth. Less clutter, more clarity. This is where wealth actually starts, not in your income. Not in your net worth, in your alignment. In knowing that the way you use money reflects the life you want, not the life you're trying to escape. Because once you feel that alignment, everything else gets easier. You save because it funds your dreams, not because you're supposed to. You spend without guilt because you've already decided what matters. You stop chasing someone else's version of success and start creating your own. So take a moment. Look at your money, look at your life, and ask the real question, does this reflect me? If not, what's one small change I could make this week to move closer to alignment? Money will always be part of your life, but it doesn't have to run your life. When you align it with your meaning, it becomes a tool for joy, not just a source of stress, and that's the kind of wealth worth building. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Guilt-Free Spending. You know that feeling. You tap your card, walk out with the bag, and immediately hear the voice in your head whispering, you probably shouldn't have bought that. Maybe it's a coffee, a concert ticket, a weekend getaway, or even just a dinner out. Whatever it is, the guilt creeps in. And not because the purchase was wrong, but because we've been trained to feel bad anytime we spend money on ourselves. This chapter is about ending that, because guilt is not a financial strategy. It doesn't help you save more. It doesn't help you spend smarter. It just makes you feel small. And over time, it turns money into a source of shame instead of a source of support. That's not how we're doing things anymore. Here's the truth: you don't have to justify joy. You don't have to earn your fun. You don't need someone else's approval to spend money on things that matter to you. What you need is clarity, intention, a sense of peace with your choices. That's where guilt-free spending begins, not with more discipline, but with more alignment. Most guilt around spending comes from one of three places. The first is comparison. We see other people making different choices, saving more, buying less, living lean, and we assume we're doing it wrong. The second is internalized rules, messages from childhood, culture, or past experiences that told us money is for survival, not for enjoyment. And the third is disconnection. We're not clear on what we really want, so when we spend it feels impulsive, not intentional. Let's break all three. First, comparison. The truth is, nobody knows your values better than you. What's wasteful to one person might be deeply meaningful to another. You don't need to justify why you prioritize travel, or books, or brunch. If it fuels you, it's valid. If it reflects who you are, it's smart. The only wrong way to spend is to spend in a way that doesn't feel true to you. Second, the rules. A lot of us were raised with money messages like you can't always get what you want, or that's a waste of money, or only irresponsible people spend on fun. But let's look at that. What's truly wasteful? Buying something that brings joy, connection, and energy. Or hoarding money out of fear, and never using it to improve your life. When you start redefining what responsible spending looks like, the guilt loses its grip. And third, disconnection. This is where intention comes in. When you spend in alignment with your values, the guilt fades. You don't need to feel bad about a $100 dinner if it's with people you love and it nourished your soul. But if you're constantly spending to escape, impress, or numb out, the guilt is actually a signal, not of bad behavior, but of misalignment. That's an opportunity to realign, not punish yourself. So here's your new rule: if you're spending from a place of joy, clarity, and alignment, you have full permission to enjoy it, completely, unapologetically, and guilt-free. Take the trip. Buy the book, go to the concert. Upgrade the thing that makes your life easier, not recklessly, but intentionally. Because here's the wild part: guilt-free spending often leads to smarter spending. When you trust yourself, you make better choices. When you stop shaming yourself, you stop rebelling. You don't need to swing between restriction and overspending anymore. You just live. You enjoy. You invest in a life that feels good now and later. So next time you feel that little voice creeping in after a purchase, pause, ask, was this aligned with what matters to me? Did it bring joy, ease, or connection? If yes, breathe, smile, and let it go. You're allowed to enjoy your money. In fact, you're supposed to. Chapter 8. Why takeout isn't evil. If you've ever felt guilty for ordering takeout instead of cooking, welcome to the club. Somewhere along the line, we were taught that takeout is a financial sin. That if you really wanted to be smart with money, you'd meal prep every Sunday, eat at home every night, and never pay for convenience. But here's the truth: takeout isn't evil, it's just a tool. And like any tool, it's all about how and why you use it. Let's be honest, life is full. You're working, commuting, parenting, building, thinking, growing. And sometimes you just don't want to chop onions. Sometimes you want food that shows up hot and ready, so you can focus on the things that matter most in that moment. There's nothing irresponsible about that. In fact, when used intentionally, takeout can be a form of self-care, not sabotage. The problem isn't the takeout, it's the autopilot. It's when the habit sneaks in 5 nights a week, and you stop noticing. You stop enjoying it. You don't even remember what you ate yesterday, but your bank account sure does. That's when it starts to feel wasteful, not because of the food itself, but because it's no longer serving you. It's just filling time, filling space, filling a gap. So instead of judging the spending, let's bring it into the light. Look at it. Understand it. Ask the real questions. Is this helping or hindering? Is this bringing joy or just convenience? Is this aligned with my values or just a shortcut through my stress? Maybe you realize that Friday takeout is sacred. It's how you unwind after the week. Great, keep it. Protect it. Maybe you realize that Monday through Thursday you're ordering because the fridge is empty and you're too tired to think. That's okay too. The goal isn't to eliminate takeout. It's to eliminate the stress and disconnection that often come with it. One of the simplest shifts you can make is building a system around takeout instead of relying on it in chaos. Maybe you meal prep just 2 nights a week. Maybe you stock your freezer with easy meals for those I can't nights. Maybe you budget for takeout as part of your fun money, not something you feel you have to hide or explain. This is where spending values come in again. If food brings you joy, if you're a foodie, a comfort seeker, a lover of flavor, then takeout might be one of your values. But even then, you can still optimize it. Choose spots you love. Avoid impulse orders that leave you feeling meh. Make the experience part of your lifestyle, not just a filler. And if takeout isn't one of your values, that's clarity, not guilt. You can start shifting that spending towards something that fuels you more. Not to deprive yourself, but to realign, to reclaim control. To feel good about where your money is going, instead of surprised when you check your statement. At the end of the day, every dollar you spend tells a story. It tells you what you're prioritizing, what you're avoiding, and what you might be craving. And takeout? It's not evil. It's not lazy. It's not failure. It's a reflection. One that you get to rewrite anytime you want, with honesty and intention. So if you order dinner tonight, enjoy it fully. And if you want to change the habit, start by getting curious, not critical. You're not doing money wrong. You're just learning how to do it your way. A way that makes sense, feels good, and builds wealth without burning out. Chapter 9. You don't need a side hustle. We live in a world that worships the hustle. Everywhere you look, someone's talking about grinding, stacking income streams, turning hobbies into businesses, or waking up at 4 a.m. to get ahead. And if you're not doing the same, you start to feel behind. Lazy. Like you're somehow doing money wrong. But here's the thing no one's saying loudly enough. You don't need a side hustle to build wealth. You just need to be intentional with what you already have. Let's be clear, more income can be helpful, but more income without a plan is like pouring water into a leaky bucket. It flows in, but it disappears just as fast. You think a few extra $100 a month will fix everything, but without changing your habits, awareness, or systems, you'll find yourself in the same cycle, just with more stress and less time. There's a hidden cost to the hustle: your evenings, your weekends, your energy, your joy. When your default answer to financial goals is work more, you start treating rest like a luxury instead of a necessity. And the irony: you can end up making more money and feeling even less free. That's not wealth. That's just burnout in a nicer car. So instead of jumping to the side hustle, start by asking, what am I doing with the money I already have? Where is it going? Is it aligned with my values? Is it helping me build the life I actually want? Because if your money is leaking into areas that don't matter, earning more won't fix the problem, it'll just hide it. Let's flip the script. What if you didn't have to work harder? What if you just had to work smarter with your spending, your saving, your systems? What if you optimized your lifestyle instead of stacking more obligations onto it? Here's a wild thought: you can build serious wealth by simplifying, not expanding. By cutting what doesn't serve you and amplifying what does. By making a few intentional shifts, automating your savings, reducing mindless spending, aligning with your values, you can free up cash without ever picking up a second job. That freed up cash becomes your seed money, your margin, your freedom fund. And with that freedom, you get something even better than a side hustle. You get your time back. You get to rest, to think, to create, to live. And if, down the road, you choose to start something new, it comes from a place of abundance, not desperation. Now, if you already have a side hustle and you love it, great, keep it. But check in with yourself. Is it still fueling you? Or is it draining you? Is the return on time worth it, not just in money, but in energy, growth, and joy? because if it's not, you're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to let go. There's no badge of honor for being the busiest. No prize for the most worn out. And no rule that says building wealth has to mean working around the clock. What matters is sustainability, alignment, peace. You don't need to monetize every passion. You don't need to fill every hour with productivity. Sometimes the most powerful financial move isn't earning more, it's choosing to need less, choosing to create space, choosing to live fully with what you already have. So take a breath. You're not behind, you're not lazy, you're not missing out. You're just choosing a different path, one that prioritizes meaning over hustle, alignment over overload, and freedom over frenzy. And that's a version of wealth worth building. Chapter 10. How to handle irregular income or overspending. Not everyone gets a paycheck every 2 weeks like clockwork, and not everyone sticks perfectly to their financial intentions, even when the plan is solid. Life doesn't move in neat, predictable lines. Sometimes you freelance. Sometimes you work on commission. Sometimes you get paid late. And sometimes you just mess up, you overspend, forget a bill, or splurge on something because emotions got the better of you. None of this makes you bad with money, it makes you human. Let's talk first about irregular income. This is one of the biggest sources of stress for creatives, entrepreneurs, gig workers, and anyone outside the 9-to-5 structure. When money comes in waves, it's easy to fall into feast or famine cycles. You get a big check and feel rich. You spend freely. Then 3 weeks later, the account is dry, and you're wondering how you'll make it to the next deposit. The key to managing this isn't budgeting harder, it's smoothing the income flow so your lifestyle doesn't rise and fall with every check. Here's how: when money comes in, treat it like a business would. Pay yourself a consistent salary out of each deposit. Let's say you make $5,000 in 1 month and $2,000 the next. Instead of spending based on what shows up, you pay yourself $2,500 both months and save the surplus from the higher month to cover the leaner one. This creates stability. You don't feel rich 1 week and broke the next. You operate from a calm, predictable place, even if your income isn't. You can also build a buffer account, a separate savings account with 1 or 2 months of baseline expenses. When income dips, the buffer fills in the gaps. When income spikes, you refill the buffer. This isn't an emergency fund. It's a rhythm stabilizer. It gives you breathing room and prevents panic. Now let's talk about overspending. It happens. Maybe you got emotional. Maybe you were bored. Maybe you just wanted to feel something other than stressed. Whatever the reason, beating yourself up won't help. Guilt doesn't rebuild your balance. Clarity does. When you overspend, pause. Look at what happened. Not to punish yourself, but to understand the pattern. Were you avoiding something? Trying to soothe something? Did you spend in alignment with your values or as a distraction from something deeper? Once you've looked at it honestly, ask what needs to shift. Do you need to delay another expense to rebalance? Can you adjust next month's spending plan? Is this a one-time slip or a recurring pattern? If it's recurring, what small habit or system can help you catch it next time? Overspending is rarely about the money, it's about emotions, energy, and awareness. Bring those into the conversation, and you'll recover faster every time. One powerful tool is a reset ritual. Instead of spiraling when things go off track, build a routine that helps you bounce back. It could be as simple as reviewing your recent spending, adjusting the next week's plan, and reminding yourself of your long-term goals. Add in something that feels good, a walk, a fresh playlist, a small win, so it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like recalibration. The truth is, whether your income is steady or not, whether you overspent last weekend or nailed it, the goal is never perfection. The goal is awareness, resilience, and alignment, and you can have those no matter what your paycheck looks like or how many off weeks you've had. Money is not a straight line. It's a conversation, a relationship, a dance. And the better you get at listening and adjusting without judgment, the more powerful and peaceful that relationship becomes. Chapter 11. Talking money with friends, partners, and roommates. Money is personal, but it doesn't stay personal. It shows up in our relationships, in the dinner invites, the group trips, the shared bills, and the silent assumptions. We often avoid money conversations not because we don't care, but because we don't know how to bring them up without sounding awkward, cheap, or controlling. But if we're going to build a life where money feels aligned and freeing, we've got to learn how to talk about it, especially with the people closest to us. Let's start with friends. You're invited to a birthday dinner at a trendy spot that costs more than you want to spend. What do? Most people either say yes and silently stress, or say no and make up an excuse. But there's a third option: honesty. You can say, hey, I'm being more intentional with my spending right now, but I'd love to celebrate in a way that works for me too. Want to grab coffee before or after? It's not dramatic. It's not judgmental. It's just you setting a boundary in a way that keeps connection intact. Boundaries with friends aren't about shutting people out. They're about staying in the relationship without abandoning yourself. The truth is, when you start aligning your money with your values, you might spend differently than the people around you. That's not a problem, it's just a shift, and real friendships can handle that shift, as long as you communicate clearly and kindly. Now let's talk about partners. Sharing a life often means sharing finances, or at least sharing the impact of each other's financial choices. And yet, so many couples avoid money talks until there's tension. One person wants to save, the other wants to spend. One tracks every penny, the other flies by instinct. Without communication, resentment builds. The key is to treat money conversations like teamwork, not interrogation. Start with values, not numbers. Ask each other, what does money mean to you? Or what are you working toward financially? From there, you can build systems that reflect both perspectives. Maybe that means separate accounts for personal spending and a joint account for shared goals. Maybe it means regular money check-ins where you look at what's working and what's not. The goal isn't identical habits, it's shared understanding. And if you're just starting to date someone, it's still okay to talk about money early, not by handing them your credit score, but by being open about your intentions. You might say, I've been working on aligning my spending with my values lately, so I'm more conscious of how I spend. It's nothing intense, just something I'm paying attention to. That one sentence can open the door to deeper trust and respect. Then there's the roommate situation. Whether you live with a friend, a sibling, or someone you found online, shared expenses can get messy fast. The secret to peace here is clarity. Who pays for what? When? What's considered fair? Spell it out in writing, even if it feels overly formal. Use tools like Splitwise or shared Google Sheets. The more transparent you are up front, the fewer conflicts you'll have down the line. Talking about money doesn't have to be dramatic or uncomfortable. It can be normal, respectful, even connective. The more we normalize these conversations, the more we release the shame and assumptions that so often cloud them. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to show up honestly. Speak clearly. Lead with curiosity, not criticism. Because when money becomes something we can talk about, it becomes something we can grow through, together. Chapter 12. No budget, no guilt, just wealth. You made it. Not just to the end of this book, but through a transformation. Maybe it didn't feel dramatic. Maybe there was no big moment. But little by little, a shift happened. You stopped seeing money as something that controls you and started seeing it as something you can shape. You stopped asking how to cut more and started asking how to live more. You stopped thinking wealth was about deprivation and started seeing it as a tool for alignment, freedom, and joy. Let's be clear, you didn't get here by tightening a budget. You got here by loosening your grip on shame. You got here by noticing your spending, understanding it, and choosing again. You took a flashlight into the parts of your financial life you used to avoid, and you found that you're more capable than you thought, more resourceful, more resilient, more ready. The old story was about restriction. Cut the lattes, cancel the fun, hustle harder, retire tired. The new story is about clarity. It's about designing your life around what matters to you and letting your money support that. Not just someday, but now. You don't need to punish yourself into financial security. You can build it, slowly, intentionally, joyfully. Wealth isn't just a number in an account. It's the ability to make decisions from a place of peace, not pressure. It's knowing you have enough room to breathe, or enough space to rest. Enough margin to pivot if you want to. That kind of wealth doesn't come from cutting everything you love. It comes from cutting what doesn't serve you. and funding what does, fully, fearlessly, and with zero guilt. Now you have the tools. You know how to track your spending without judgment. You know how to build systems that save and invest for you automatically. You know how to align your money with your values, how to recover when things go sideways, and how to talk about money without shame. That's a powerful foundation. But here's what matters most: this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new relationship with money, one that's built on awareness, not anxiety, one that honors your real life, not some idealized version, one that leaves room for growth, for change, for joy. You don't need to do everything at once. In fact, don't. Start with one small step. Maybe it's setting up your automatic transfer. Maybe it's taking the 7-day awareness challenge again. Maybe it's having that money conversation you've been avoiding. Whatever it is, take the next step. Action is what turns intention into transformation. And if you fall off track? If you overspend, miss a transfer, or default to old habits, that's okay. You're not starting over. You're starting from experience. Every misstep is data. Every mistake is an opportunity to return, not to the budget, but to alignment. So here's your final challenge: trust yourself. You don't need someone to monitor your every dollar. You don't need to copy someone else's blueprint. You just need to stay honest, stay curious, and stay committed to living a life where your money works for you, not the other way around. No budget, no guilt, just wealth. The kind that feels like freedom. The kind that fits your life. The kind that's already unfolding, one aligned decision at a time. Let's go build that life. Take care and be well.